I never believed a job as simple as looking out for smoke could lead me down such a dangerous and life-changing path. My name is Keith, by the way, a Virginia native who has worked for the Shenandoah National Park Service for 20 years. After years of building my savings and working construction jobs, I decided I wanted to spend my last working years in a field where I could be surrounded by nature and solitude. I've done everything from trail maintenance to working in visitor centers, even sitting in those tiny, hot, stuffy booths collecting money from tourists entering our local parks. I've enjoyed every minute of my career. The autumn leaves in Virginia are absolutely breathtaking come October. Spring and summer months are just as great, amazing views, and more wildlife than you can imagine. All that aside though, something happened to me last summer that I still have trouble reliving. It keeps me up at night, and the ridicule from my fellow employees, and even my family annoys the hell out of me. This really happened, and only I and one other coworker know the truth. It all started last spring. I was tasked with clearing brush from one of the more popular trails in the park. I had just used my pruners to cut away some of the pesky paradise trees around a sharp bend when my work cell phone started ringing. I answered, a little out of breath. Hello? The caller was my supervisor, Rick, a gruff man I'd spent years with clearing trails until he landed his supervisor role. Rick was no nonsense, but he had a heart of gold. Keith, how's your day going? He asked in a friendly tone. Same old, same old. Just got the old blue trail opened up for the season. Rick chuckled. Sounds good, buddy. We're lucky to have you around here. The young guys could learn a thing or two about work ethic from you. I smiled. I guess so, sir. What's up? Rick sighed, and after a long pause, he spoke again. Keith, I have a favor to ask. You know the fire lookout tower in Fort Valley? I paused, thinking. I remembered seeing that old tower years ago while fighting a massive wildfire in that area. Yes, sir. Did it survive the wildfires? Rick chuckled. Oh yeah. That old dinosaur is still standing. It's gonna take a lot more than heat to bring it down. I softly chuckled too, but my mind was turning. Why was Rick asking about this? I could hear keyboards clacking in the background before Rick's voice came back. Believe it or not, every year, during the dry season, that tower, and the one on the north side of the valley, are manned by seasonal employees for a few months. Problem is, the guy who was manning the old tower on the south side abandoned his post last week, and the Park Service is breathing down my neck to find a replacement. You could hear a pin drop with the silence that followed. I sighed. So, you're asking if I would do it? Rick didn't answer right away, but eventually said, Please, Keith. If you're willing, it's only for 3 more weeks. I'll make sure you get a $5,000 bonus at the end of the year for your trouble. You're an experienced vet, and I'd feel a hell of a lot better with someone like you up there. I really wasn't interested. I mean, 3 weeks of absolutely nothing to do but stare into the distance, eat ramen, and sleep. But my wife, Katie, and I had our eyes on a new bass boat, and that bonus would seal the deal. I laughed into the receiver. Okay, Rick, I'll do it for you this one time. But I'd need $7,000 to make it worth my while. I only said it as a joke, not thinking he'd go for it. Done, he said immediately. That night, I talked to Katie about the new assignment. She wasn't thrilled about being alone for 3 weeks, but she agreed the money would be nice. She also mentioned that the solitude might help ease some of the stress and anxiety I'd been carrying. The next morning, I met Rick at headquarters. We hopped on his ATV and rode the rough, bumpy trails leading to the old watchtower. A low-hanging fog blanketed the forest, and the air was muggy. Gnats and mosquitoes swarmed our heads whenever we stopped to clear fallen branches. Rick brought the ATV to a halt and killed the engine. Okay, buddy. The tower's about a half-mile south. The trail ends here. This is as close as I can get you. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and started to walk away, but paused. I turned back to Rick and asked one simple question. What happened to the last guy? Rick's eyes darted back and forth. I could tell he was hiding something. Honestly, I don't know. Mark stopped by to bring him his weekly supply run, and found the tower abandoned, door wide open, no sign of him. I guess the isolation got to him. I didn't like that answer, but I nodded and made my way toward the tower. Animal tracks lined the trail, mostly deer, but I noticed fresh black bear tracks too. For the past few years, a mange outbreak had wiped most of them out, but I smiled, seeing signs of their return. The tower came into view a few minutes later, and I stood in awe of its height. A long, winding metal staircase led to the small wooden hut at the top. Before climbing, I took a long sip from my water bottle and began my ascent. Once at the top, I was confused by the sight before me. The front door to the tower was still open, swinging lightly on its hinges. Papers and maps were scattered all over the floor. On the bright side, the place smelled fresh, probably because the door had been left open for a week and the breeze aired it out. I spent my first hour cleaning. A small, uncomfortable cot sat in the left corner. A tiny kitchen was tucked in the back, and a desk was on the right side of the room. A nice pair of binoculars sat on the desk next to a dusty old radio. I noticed someone had dropped off supplies at some point: potted meat, crackers, ramen noodles, and other simple foods. I wasn't hungry though. The hike had me sweating something fierce, and all I wanted was water. I walked out onto the balcony, and for the first time that day, smiled. The sun had burned away most of the fog, and miles of scenic forest lay before me. I walked a full circle around the deck, admiring how sturdy the lumber still was after all these years. Damn, they don't make them like they used to, I muttered to myself. After unpacking, I sat on the cot and turned my attention to the radio. I blew the dust off the mic and pressed the button. Fort Valley South Tower here. Anyone copy? Static filled the cabin. I sighed, ready to walk away, when a young, chipper-sounding voice replied. North Tower here. I read you loud and clear. How's it going over there? The other tower was manned by Cody, a 25-year-old seasonal employee. He seemed friendly, enthusiastic. We chatted for a bit about the job, life, and where we were from, then signed off. That day, I cut brush from the trail, did regular 360 scans with the binoculars, and kept notes in the logbook. The job was boring, but man, the views were unbeatable. That night, I checked in with Cody one last time and wished him good night. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about the guy who abandoned this post. Something about the state of the cabin felt off. Before crawling into bed, I picked up the radio again. Hey Cody, have you noticed anything weird going on? I mean, what would have made the last guy leave? Cody didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice trembled. Honestly, I don't know. His name was Michael. We chatted often. Everything seemed normal at first, but 2 weeks ago, we started hearing weird howling at night. He kept talking about something pacing around his tower, but I never saw anything. I think he just went a little stir-crazy. I nodded to myself, but something didn't sit right. Still, I went to bed and, to my surprise, got a full night's sleep. I woke at 6 a.m. to the sound of crows and other birds singing as the sun rose over the Shenandoah Mountains. I stretched, cracked open a Monster energy drink from my mini cooler, and took a seat in the plastic lawn chair on the deck. I never liked coffee, too bitter. Sipping my drink, I scanned the horizon through the binoculars. A deer bounded across the open meadow west of the tower, and I smiled. Maybe Katie was right. Maybe I did need this. Later that day, I heard the distant rumble of an ATV engine. I walked to the north side of the deck and saw a young woman with bright red hair and a ranger's hat park near the trailhead. I met her at the bottom of the stairs. She introduced herself as Erica, a seasonal employee dropping off supplies. I thanked her and turned to head back up when I felt her hand grip my shoulder, firm, strong, like a bodybuilder's. I spun around. Her face was pale, eyes wide. Is everything okay? I asked. Erica sighed and looked me dead in the eyes. Michael didn't leave. Something took him. Please, for God's sake, be careful. Then she turned and jogged down the trail like a bear was chasing her. I called after her, but she never looked back. I stood there frozen, legs weak. My heart raced. I had a gut feeling something was off, and now I had validation. Once back inside the cabin, I went straight for my backpack and pulled out the revolver I hadn't told Rick about. I holstered it and thought to myself, I really hope I don't have to go all Clint Eastwood out here. Darkness fell early that evening. The wind had picked up and changed direction. It had been a light eastern breeze all day, but now it blew hard from the west at 15 to 20 miles per hour. Must be a storm blowing in, I muttered. The treetops swayed violently as the wind howled through the mountains. I made myself a sad little Spam sandwich and stepped out onto the balcony one last time before bed. In the distance, I could just make out the faint light of the North Tower's cabin. That little dot of light brought me some comfort. At least Cody was out there too. I walked back inside and radioed him. "South Tower to North Tower." Cody responded after a second, and we laughed about how terrible our dinners were. He mentioned a hiker he met earlier that day who claimed he saw the biggest wolf he'd ever seen a few miles up the trail. "There's no damn wolves in Virginia," I said. Cody laughed. "Probably just a big coyote. These city folks don't have a clue." "Yeah, you're probably right." We said our goodnights. I fell asleep quickly, but around 2 a.m., I shot upright to the crackle of the radio blaring into the silence. Rubbing my eyes, I stumbled over to the desk. "Repeat that, North Tower," I said. Static. Then Cody's panicked voice came through, shaky and fast. "Keith, holy fuck. Did you hear that howl? What are you talking about?" I was asleep. His breathing was so heavy I thought he might pass out. "It howled right outside my cabin. It sounded like it was at the damn base of the tower." I stood there, silent, mind spinning. Cody's voice came back, frantic. "Keith, are you there? Something's climbing up my stairs. Oh my God." "Calm down, Cody. It's probably just a raccoon. The howl could have been a coyote. There's tons of them here." More static. Then a final, chilling transmission. "Oh my God. Please, no. Holy fuck." A loud, blood-curdling howl echoed through the radio. Then silence. I stood there holding the mic, frozen. My lips wouldn't move. My hand finally let go of the button, and I placed the microphone back on the hook. I sat on the edge of the bed, head spinning, chest tight. What the hell just happened? Was Cody pulling my leg? Or did something break into his tower? I gripped the edge of the bed and stared at my pack. After a moment, I reached down and retrieved the revolver. I dressed quickly, laced up my boots, and opened the cabin door. The cool night air hit me like a slap to the face, calming me just enough to move. Mag light in my left hand, revolver in my right, I descended the stairs and headed north. Even though I hadn't been on that trail in years, I made decent time. I tripped over a few fallen branches, but I pushed forward, fast and quiet as I could. My heart thudded louder with every step. Within an hour, the North Tower came into view, sitting in a wide clearing surrounded by tall pines. It looked just like mine, only slightly shorter. The metal stairs were rusty, and the cabin lights were still on. I stepped up to the bottom of the stairs, but before my foot touched the first step, a loud howl froze me in place. I turned slowly toward the tree line. Two piercing yellow eyes stared at me from about 7 feet off the ground. They moved slightly left to right, as if sizing me up. "What the fuck is that?" I whispered. Without thinking, I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time. I flung the cabin door open. Empty. The receiver hung from its cord, lights still on, but Cody was gone. I called out, but silence answered. Panicked, I rushed back down the stairs. At the base, I shone my mag light toward the woods. What I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. Standing in the clearing was a giant wolf-like creature on 2 legs. Its yellow eyes locked with mine. It had massive, human-like feet and hands with claws like railroad spikes. In one hand, it held what I assumed was Cody's head, blood dripping from the neck like a leaky faucet. In the other, one of his legs. The creature snarled, growling low, but I swear to God it was smiling. A twisted, sadistic smile. My heart dropped into my boots. I raised the revolver and fired 3 times into the darkness. The creature recoiled, dropping Cody's head and clutching its chest. Black blood oozed between its fingers. Then it looked skyward and let out a howl so loud I felt it in my bones. I shoved the revolver back into its holster and ran. I didn't look back. My legs burned, lungs screamed, but I kept running until I reached the South Tower. Stumbling up the stairs, I collapsed on the floor, heart hammering in my chest. I was lucky to be alive. But I knew, deep down, that thing let me live. If it wanted to, it could have caught me in seconds. 10 minutes later, Still gasping, I staggered to the radio and switched to the headquarters frequency. South Tower to base. A creature is out here. It got Cody. Someone please help. A female voice came through almost immediately. I told you, Keith. I fucking told you. I froze. Erica. Silence. I tried again. No response. I gave up, collapsed onto the bed, and stared at the ceiling. Had I just witnessed a man being murdered by a cryptid? Maybe it was just a nightmare, but I knew better. By 8 a.m., I finally got up and walked out onto the balcony. I scanned the horizon quickly, just to say I was doing my job, and went back inside. I tried calling headquarters and Rick multiple times throughout the day. Nothing, no reply. That's when I made the decision. I'd sneak out that night and hike out of these cursed woods. No one would believe me anyway, and I was close to retirement. If they fired me, so be it. I'd still buy that bass boat and live the rest of my life in peace. I tried to eat lunch, but my stomach was in knots. The image of Cody's body wouldn't leave my mind. I packed up all my belongings and sat on the balcony, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. At dusk, I'd leave. The tower creaked as the temperature dropped. Light rain began to fall, thunder rumbling in the distance. I wasn't as lucky as the night before. This time the storm was coming right over me. All I could think about was getting back to Katie and my German Shepherd, Chief. Back to mowing the lawn. Back to normal. The sky turned a dark shade of purple. I stood, took one last look across the forest, and turned to face the North Tower. A deep sigh escaped my lips. Poor Cody, I whispered. I clenched my fists and vowed I wouldn't end up like him. My brain tried to convince me this was all a mistake, that monsters weren't real, but my heart knew the truth. I locked the cabin door, grabbed my backpack, checked my phone. It was useless. No signal, but the battery was still good. I reloaded the revolver, 3 fresh rounds. Something told me I'd need them. I walked to the stairs and placed my hand on the cold metal railing. As I rounded the last bend of the staircase, I froze. Every step down twisted my stomach tighter. My chest was tight with dread. My legs felt weak. Standing at the bottom of the tower was Erica. Her red hair was soaked from the rain, clinging to her face. Her ranger uniform was dripping wet. I instinctively moved my hand toward my pistol, but she didn't flinch. She just stood there, motionless. Something was wrong. Her face was blank, eyes too white, like she wasn't looking at me, she was looking through me. I found the nerve to speak, though my voice came out weaker than I intended. Erica, what's wrong? Why are you out here in the storm? Her head tilted to the side, unnaturally, like something out of a horror film. Then she smiled.
Going somewhere, Keith?
She asked, her voice deep and unnatural. I was paralyzed. My hands trembled. No, ma'am. I was just going to check out the North Trail. That last lightning strike was close, you know? She tilted her head the other direction and kept smiling. But now, she was slowly shaking her head side to side.
Silly man,
she said in that same horrible tone.
Did you think you could just walk out of here like Michael did?
My stomach dropped. I tried to stay calm. What the hell are you talking about, Erica? She frowned, then bowed her head. The wind howled through the trees. My heart pounded in my ears. I glanced around, desperate for a way out. When I looked back, Erica's body started to shake violently. Her uniform tore at the seams as her muscles bulged and twisted. Dark brown fur spread across her skin. Right in front of my eyes, Erica transformed into the creature I had seen the night before. Once fully transformed, she threw her head back and let out the same bone-chilling howl from Cody's radio. Then she locked her eyes on mine. I drew the revolver and aimed at her head. The beast smiled and laughed, a deep, guttural, mocking laugh. It wasn't scared. It was daring me. My hands shook, but I fired. 2 loud shots rang out. Smoke drifted through the rain. The beast stumbled back, clutching its chest and neck as thick black blood oozed from the wounds. It dropped to its knees. I locked eyes with it. Erica, I asked, you killed Michael and Cody, didn't you? The creature tilted its head and smiled. Then it nodded. That was all I needed. I raised the revolver again, but before I could fire, it growled and darted off into the trees. Fast. too fast for me to even get a clean shot. I just stood there, dumbfounded. Once the sounds of the forest returned, crickets chirping, rain tapping on leaves, I shined my light toward the trail and started walking. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to run. But I knew better. One wrong step, one slip, and it'd be over. I focused on the trail, light swinging wildly every time I jumped at a sound behind me. Eventually, I reached a clearing. I recognized it. This was where Rick had dropped me off on the ATV. I stopped to catch my breath, pulled out my can of Kodiak wintergreen snuff, and packed a massive lip. The nicotine helped settle me, just a little. Then I heard it. Footsteps. To my left. Every time I stopped, they stopped. I walked faster. 10 minutes later, I came to a pile of fallen trees and brush blocking the trail. It looked like it had been stacked intentionally. A barricade. I didn't have time to clear it, so I began crawling around it. Just as I reached the edge, I heard rapid footsteps behind me. I turned. 2 glowing yellow eyes came flying through the air. Before I could react, something slammed into me, sending me flying 20 feet. I landed hard on my side, gasping for air, ribs screaming in pain. When my eyes fluttered open, I saw nothing but the black sky and those same yellow eyes staring down at me. The wolf was back, towering over me like a nightmare made flesh. Blood trickled from my mouth. Every breath felt like a knife in my ribs. It bent down and grabbed my shirt collar, lifting me off the ground until we were nose to nose. Its breath was rancid, like roadkill and sewage. I gagged, fighting back vomit. Drool ran from its mouth, dripping onto my face. And that smile, that goddamn smile, it was still there. My mind flooded with images of Katie, of Chief, waiting at home. Rage boiled inside me, mixing with the pain. With everything I had left, I punched the beast square in the snout. It yelped and dropped me. I hit the ground hard and began army crawling across the forest floor, pine needles slicing my arms. Then I felt it. 2 massive hands grabbed my ankles and yanked me backward. The creature spun me onto my back, raised one clawed hand, and swiped down. I rolled just in time, and the claws shredded the ground beside me. I reached for my revolver and fired into its stomach. Black blood sprayed across my chest. The beast roared in pain, staggering. I grabbed a fallen tree and pulled myself upright, every movement agony. My shoulder throbbed. My ribs felt broken. My legs barely held me up. Creature stepped toward me again, slower this time, blood oozing from its wounds. I raised the revolver and emptied the rest of the cylinder into its chest. The beast dropped to its knees and collapsed. My head spun. My heart thundered. I limped to my maglite, shining it on the fallen monster. 7 feet tall, covered in brown fur, human-like hands and feet, only massive. A long, narrow snout. 4-inch fangs stained with blood. It was like a werewolf, but worse. Smarter, meaner, real. I leaned down, checking if it was breathing. It looked dead. Then its eyes snapped open. It lunged and wrapped its massive hand around my throat, lifting me off the ground. I clawed at its wrist, legs kicking, gasping for air. My vision blurred. My legs gave out. It slammed me into the ground and swatted me like a rag doll. I hit a rock hard, and my shoulder popped out of place. Pain unlike anything I'd ever felt exploded through my body. I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. The creature stood over me, eyes locked onto mine. It drew back its hand to finish me. Then, a roar, not a howl. A deep, guttural roar, like thunder being ripped in half. The wolf froze, its head snapping toward the sound. Another roar, this time closer. From my right, I heard something moving, but in my dazed state, I couldn't be sure if it was real. The wolf turned its gaze back to me, opened its jaws wide, ready to clamp down. Then, a massive, hairy arm shot out from the trees and wrapped around the wolf's throat. The wolf's eyes bulged. Blood sprayed from its nose as it was yanked backward and thrown like a toy. I rolled to my side, blinking through the pain. Standing there was something I'd only heard about in campfire stories. 8 feet tall, muscles like tree trunks, covered in dark hair. Its face was part ape, part human. Intelligent, fierce, and terrifying. Bigfoot. He let out another roar that echoed across the valley. The wolf scrambled to its feet, wounded but not done. It lunged. Bigfoot met it with a punch that sent teeth flying into the woods. Then he stomped on the wolf's head, denting its skull. Bigfoot beat his chest and turned to face me. I froze. My hands went up in surrender. He stared at me with a curious expression, then slowly raised one massive arm and pointed toward the trail. I nodded. I limped forward, grabbing my light and revolver as I passed the bodies. Blood pooled beneath the wolf. It wasn't moving. I turned one last time. Bigfoot was still standing there, watching me. Then, headlights. Blinding at first, but it was an ATV. Rick. He skidded to a stop, mouth wide as he stared at the scene, the torn-up wolf, the towering Bigfoot. Then he looked at me, covered in blood, arm dangling, lip split. He didn't say a word. He just handed me my backpack, then reached into the ATV storage and pulled out a manila envelope. He handed it to me with my truck keys and nodded. I got onto the ATV with him, and we rode off into the forest, back to safety. It was all a blur to me at that moment. I barely made it home. I passed out in the driveway. I woke up the next morning to Chief licking my face and Katie calling my name, shaking me. I told her I fell from the tower and was on administrative leave. I never told her what really happened. Now, I mow the lawn, watch baseball, and tinker with my old Mustang. Once a month, Katie and I take the bass boat out on the lake and just breathe. But not a night goes by without the dreams. The yellow eyes. The howl. So take my advice, don't laugh off stories of cryptids and monsters. It's all fun and games until you meet one. Also, thank you, Bigfoot, for saving me. South Tower, signing off. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Descent into the Unknown for more horror content. If you have any real cryptid encounters, or you're a horror writer wanting to share your stories, please feel free to email me in the description anytime.